Hello and welcome back to another episode of a weekly waypoint. Today, I'll talk about which game this is in just a little bit, but first of all, I need to take accountability. I need to tell you why we're not playing Tony Hawk's Underground right now. Basically, the way I've been doing this is booting up these games, entering the cheat codes to unlock all the levels and skaters, and then playing through each level. Unfortunately, Tony Hawk's Underground, and I'm guessing Underground 2 and the games after it, do not allow you to enter those kinds of cheat codes without having some progression in the game. And when I'm starting to boot up the game and record it like 4 or 5 hours before the video's due out, I don't have time to play through the entire damn game. I mentioned that this is how they handled it on the PS1 version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, and foolishly I said that I was not concerned about Underground because I'd already been playing it and knew it wasn't an issue. I didn't know it wasn't an issue because I hadn't checked about the cheat codes in Underground, so I don't know why I was so confident. But for now, we're gonna have to skip. I even tried downloading a 100% completion save file, but I could not get it to be recognized, unfortunately. I'll continue working on the Tony Hawk's Underground issue, hoping that we can revisit it later in this retrospective, but for now, this is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD. For those of you who don't know, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 was not the first time that a lot of that game had been remade in HD. No, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD exists, and this was around the PlayStation 3 era, if you are wondering. I completely forgot to mention, but the skater I'm using is retro Tony Hawk. The skater models don't look this blocky normally. However, I would say that retro Tony Hawk has aged better than the PS3 graphics of the actual Tony Hawk skater. It's not a true remake, it's kind of its own game, but it just exists to up-res old levels. And I remember at the time it had some criticism for the physics not being exactly true to life compared to the old games, and being a little bit wonky. I always thought those criticisms were overblown because I actually love this game. It's one of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skaters I've put the most amount of time into. But having just played 1, 2, 3 and 4 back to back and now jumping over to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD for the first time in my life, I can kind of see where people were coming from. In comparison to the games it is attempting to recreate here, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD can feel a little bit sluggish, and sometimes it just doesn't feel quite right in terms of the timing of, you know, kickflips affecting whether you collide into physics objects. Sometimes the physics is just a little wonky in general. At around the 1 minute mark on the first level back there, we've already passed it in the video, but I did wipe out for no reason that I can understand. Actually, you know what? I know exactly what it is because I just went back and watched it in super slow motion. I can tell you what it is. In this game, when you start a new grind or a new manual, it retains the balance that you had previously. I'm pretty sure in other Tony Hawk's games, even though it retains like the fact that you might be about to fall off and it's really hard to keep your balance, I'm pretty sure every time you start a new grind or manual, it starts you in the middle of the bar. I could be wrong on that front, but that's what my gut tells me is happening here. But yeah, I own Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD back in the day on PS3, and I own it on Steam, which I am pleased about because it is long since been delisted. You can no longer acquire this game legitimately. And in fact, this game had some DLC with 3 more levels, taking it from 7 levels up to 10 levels, but unfortunately I do not own that DLC and therefore those levels will not be in this video. It's almost as if delisting games from digital storefronts is shitty. Of course, it likely has to do with all of the licensing with the music and the brands on the clothing and the various skaters themselves. Kind of unavoidable, but you know me in copyright law, I'm old man shakes fist at cloud anyway. Just because something is the way that it is and has been for a long time doesn't mean that it is the way that it should be. But yeah, I guess this is technically abandonware these days, so do with that information what you will. I will say I have noticed, having played various Tony Hawk's games over the last few weeks and my entire life, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD is probably the game in the series that gets me the most angry. I have rage quit this game more than a few times throughout my life, and throughout this recording I was effing and blinding a fair amount. And yes, once again, I would have loved to have spent more time just trying to really get in those high scores and have the most impressive looking gameplay possible, but again, I was recording this a few hours before this video needs to go live because I've lost control of my life. Nah, not really. Last night, I basically just decided to veg out and I got into a Zen gaming state. I decided to do a little experiment and see if it was possible to play World of Warcraft Classic while listening to an audiobook and be able to focus on the audiobook to the point of being immersed in the story. So far, the only games I've really been able to do this with have been RuneScape and Brighter Shores because they are very passive games. You click, you watch your character do stuff, and you're good. But I'm very much the kind of person who's done multitasking before in terms of listening to an audiobook and doing tasks in real life. And when I thought about WoW Classic and how grindy and repetitive that gameplay can be and how kind of long-term goal-oriented the gameplay is, I thought to myself that might be a good fit for an audiobook game, if that's how we're going to call that. And before I knew it, I'd whittled away a good 4.5 hours of my life questing through Durotar on my brand new Troll Mage while listening to The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. Warframer. Yeah, I don't know, people's mileage might vary in terms of being able to multitask and listen to audiobooks and be fully immersed. I'm sure there is some level of trade-off where you maybe don't picture events quite as vividly as you would otherwise, but honestly, it is one of my favourite ways to read, and maybe that's an ADHD thing, but I think it's perfectly valid all the same. I can look back on the events of a book I've been reading, and I have visualised memories about it, I feel like just as well as I would have if I was just reading it in another format, so it's fine. It was nice to be able to achieve this quote-unquote zen state, because it's been a while since I've been fully immersed in something and just done something for hours with my brain turned off. I just haven't been able to do that for a long time, and I don't know why. And it's something I plan on doing today as well. I'm not gonna lie, viewer, I'm gonna get real for a second. I've had a pretty terrible week, because my cat passed away a few days ago, and that's not been very fun. Unfortunately, it is an inevitability that if I'm going to do a weekly series throughout my life that is going to last as long as the weekly waypoint has lasted, we are going to have weeks where I'm going to have to be like, hey guys, this real thing happened in my life which fucking sucked and I'm still dealing with it. I won't get too into detail about the specifics or linger for too long on what happened, because I know that can be fairly triggering for some people, including me, but just in terms of relevancy to like my gaming habits, it was really nice to be able to just veg out for 4.5 hours in World of Warcraft last night. It's not the hardest hitting grief I've ever had for a pet. It's up there, but it's not the absolute worst. And you know, this ain't my first rodeo. I'm not just hiding from it in World of Warcraft. I'm dealing with it, I'm talking about it, all the good stuff. But man, was it nice to just make a troll mage and just level through Durotar with my brain turned off. It was so nice. I think I mentioned last week, or maybe the week before, how when it comes to MMOs, I find myself wanting to go back to them at the minute. Not for the new content that they're putting out, but just for the cozy old stuff that I've done 1,000 times already. And yeah, leveling a new character through WoW Classic, I've never actually finished that. I've never actually got max level in WoW Classic, and maybe this will be the guy. I doubt it. But in terms of just spinning up a new character and leveling them through, yeah, that was something that I very much enjoyed doing and wanted to do. I still don't give a shit about the Goblin patch in World of Warcraft, even though I could go install that and check it out right now. I just want to be romping around Durotar, killing a Quillboar and shit. That's all I want to be doing with my time right now. I actually usually roll Alliance, but I thought about playing Classic, like Classic at the minute, Classic Vanilla, whatever the hell you want to call it. And I thought, what is the only class I can be asked to level through that version of the game? It's Mage. And then I thought, I've already done Human, or I've already done Human up to like level 30, and I'm not going to be a gnome, so I just windmill slammed Troll, because as much as I think the undead are cool, I just didn't feel like gloomy Tirisfal Glades at the minute. And yeah, it's actually, I don't think it's an experience I've had in World of Warcraft leveling through that version of Durotar, so I guess in a way it is a new experience. I have precious few of those left waiting for me in Azeroth. And I'd already been leveling my hardcore Tauren through the 20th anniversary realms, which is what I'm talking about when I say classic for those of you not initiated. Hey look, there's an example of the wonky physics. And I am still planning to play through that Tauren. I was having a good time. Actually, I remember last time I was playing through him, I had my bout of lightheadedness, which I had to go to the doctors for. So I was actually having to limit the amount of time that I was playing and try making my monitor darker and all these things. And I was having trouble concentrating because I was having anxiety about my lightheadedness as well. That was a whole thing. Yeah, I guess that would have been the last time I was playing on him. But yeah, when you're playing a hardcore character, no matter how much you try to convince yourself that it's just casual and that you will happily just transfer to normal servers after you die for the first time, you can't really turn your brain off and enjoy enjoy it the way you can when you don't care about dying. I've already died like 3 or 4 times on my troll. But yeah, I'm having such a good time and I can't wait to get back to it. You may have noticed I've also been dipping my foot back into Cataclysm Classic via the video series that I've been doing with, oh heck, what's his name? Doric. If you want to see my adventures in Cataclysm Classic in long-form video content, you can see Doric's quest, of which there are 3 videos. I've got a 4th recorded. I will continue doing that series weekly. We definitely won't get up to a high level in time for Miss of Pandaria if we do it weekly, so maybe I'll try and up that, or maybe it can just be a fun thing for a few levels. It doesn't have to be a dedicated project. I am currently juggling 2 MMOs because I've also been playing a whole bunch of RuneScape Free. That's not news, I've been doing that for weeks, but just to give you an update as to what I'm currently doing in that game, I am basically grinding the hell out of mining and smithing because I've realized just how important it is to have high-level mining and smithing on an Iron Man. Now more than ever, with the new 110 updates, like, if I want to get a good hatchet to continue leveling woodcutting, I need to hardcore focus mining and smithing. Something I am noticing about my account, I will say, is that we are getting pretty high level now. Like, my lowest level is probably 67, but most of my levels are in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But I have like 140 quest points or so, which, for those of you who don't play RuneScape, isn't very many quest points, and quests are one of the ways in that game that you unlock content, so I am falling far behind in terms of questing. I need to make that a focus, but executive dysfunction is a bitch. And whenever I look at the item requirements to begin a quest, because you will require those items within the quest to do the quest, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do it. So that's something I need to get better at, I think. Miscellaneous gaming adventures. I have been... Well, I bought the Devil May Cry franchise bundle because it was like £16, and that's an insane deal. I'm slowly making my way through the Devil May Cry anime, which just dropped on Netflix, which some people have really strong negative opinions about, which I don't understand. I'm 3 episodes in and I'm having a blast. Reese has finished it and he loved it, and you know, Reese loves Devil May Cry. He's the Devil May Cry guy in our friendship, so that's the only opinion I really care about. But people are so hyperbolic about things that they don't like, and I think I have a very literal-minded brain, so when people are very, like, oh man, this was awful for these reasons, and I'm just watching it and I'm enjoying it, and those things aren't bothering me, I'm like, what am I missing? Like, what's happening? And I find it so distracting that it puts me off. I had a similar thing with Starfield. I talked about that ad nauseum, but I think that the discourse surrounding Starfield was far, far, far more negative than the game deserved. But anyway, I've played a little bit of Devil May Cry 1. You can find that in the latest miscellaneous shenanigans video and see how I'm getting on with that. I don't know if I'm going to force myself to finish 1 before moving on to 2, before moving on to 3, etc. I might at some point just decide to start from 3, because I hear that's when the series really gets good. I am enjoying my time with Devil May Cry 1 so far, but as my friend warned me, there is a bit of a difficulty spike. I dipped my toe into a few different survival games this week. I continued playing a little bit of Valheim, but there's something about survival games where they leave it a little bit too open, and I lose motivation to continue because my objectives just feel too ethereal, if that makes sense. Like, currently, I need to upgrade my crafting bench, but to do that, I need to add amenities to my house to make them better, but I already have a bed and 2 chests and, like, a campfire and stuff, and I don't know what else it wants me to do, and the only other thing I need to do is, like, hunt leather to make a bow, and I don't know, that's just not motivating me. I've re-downloaded Enshrouded, which I spoke very highly about when I first tried it out, and I'm enjoying it still, but it is a little bit of like a what was I doing syndrome. I also downloaded a demo for a game called Cubic Odyssey, which isn't out yet, but is being advertised all over Reddit, at least if you have my advertising algorithm. The premise is basically Minecraft meets No Man's Sky, and while that might not sound like the most original premise, especially in terms of just how many Minecraft butts have been out there, so far it's pretty cool. It seems like it might be one of those indie games which is actually a pretty cool one to play. Obviously it's never going to be as popular as Minecraft or No Man's Sky maybe, but it's a cool idea, so you maybe go check that out if that sounds like something that interests you. Last week on the Weekly Waypoint I made a bunch of predictions for the Switch 2 Direct. Of course the Switch 2 Direct has happened and I've made a video all about that, I guess just to follow up on some thoughts as events have progressed throughout the week and discourse has been had. Yeah, I still can't get over that pricing model. As I've mentioned before, the console is releasing 4 days before my 30th birthday, which seems like a perfect excuse to get it, but I literally cannot afford it and it bums me out. That being said, the price of a console itself maybe isn't as egregious as it immediately seems, at least here in the UK. But yeah, the price of it and the games and the prices that they want their games to be is still very much a talking point worth having because I want them to change their minds. But you know, there's more concerning pricing problems in the world right now than being able to afford the latest video game console. Basically, I've just resolved to be like, well, maybe I can save up for it over a year or so. Maybe I can get it for Christmas or something. I don't have to have it on day one. I just don't want to end up having to wait until it's like 3/4 of the way through its life cycle. But yes, I was looking, I had the ability to pre-order theoretically, and I had to make myself not do that, and it sucked. Anyway, would you look at that, we've reached the end of the video. It's a bit abrupt because it's taken me off guard, because there's only 7 levels in this game, so I don't have enough time for waffling. Anyway, thank you very much for checking out this video. I will catch you, hopefully, in whatever I make next.